Yeah, guys, very good afternoon to all of you. So, are we in? Have we joined the call? All settled? If anyone cannot see my screen, then please let me know about it because we are just going to start the Power Query series. Uh, okay, so I guess all of us have joined. No problems. I see that it's everybody is on mute and yeah, right. So we are on the call. Okay, so guys, I want to start this Power Query. We have a long way to go. Now there are a couple of things which I want to tell you before we start exploring this wonderful the Power Query editor. I'm going to show you this right now. I want to give you some knowledge about some idea about that what is a Power Query, and then we will also be talking about the installation of the Power Query, which is very simple, right? You need not to do anything, right? You just need to download it, and that too depends upon the version. Anyways, that is a topic we will discuss after the Power Query. What is a Power Query? Now you see, if you Google or if you just go and read any book, you are going to find out lot of information about the Power Query, right? The point is that why first of all we need the Power Query and how the Power Query looks like, how it is going to benefit me. These are the questions, these are the questions that why I need the Power Query, why I need the Power Query, right? This is something. So I'll just go and write the Power Query, why I need the Power Query, what are the benefits of the Power Query. This is something you should ask yourself since and or you I'm sure you must have asked that. That is why you are joining this training program, right? Now you see, the Power Query actually helps you in two main, according to me, in my opinion, there are two challenges which we have been coming across from the ages, ever since we have been using the Microsoft Excel. And I think basis those feedbacks, this Power Query is developed by the Microsoft in 2010. It is actually launched. Today is 2019, so in during these 9 years, lot of progress has been made in the Power Query. Now Power Query actually helps you in resolving two main things, or I would say that two main challenges, which we were facing in Excel. Now, the first thing which why you want to use the Power Query is that now your data challenge is over. Okay, that means that now you can work with millions of rows. Okay, millions of rows. Now we always know as an Excel user that in our this Excel we have got 10,48,576 rows, which means 1 million rows. But unfortunately we can't use these 1 million rows because the size of the file will go up and it is not going to really work the way it should work. And moreover, because after you have a data here, you will go and put some formulas, you will make some charts, pivots. The file is going to be very heavy. In fact, even if you go and put some half of the data over here, half million data, even then the Excel will not respond so fast, and it keeps on going in the calculation mode, and which is very frustrating. But now with the help of the Power Query, you can store millions of the rows over there in the Power Query editor, which I'm going to show you later, right? So the first good news is that now we don't have a data challenge. We can work on the data huge the large data very easily using the Power Query. Okay, what is the second point? I think the second point in my opinion is that it has made your data analysis very easy, right? So I would say not the data analysis but the data extraction. Okay, data extraction includes data refining also. I mean, you want to just go and keep the data neat and clean, right? So with the Power Query editor, there are different features over there. We can just go and make our data structured. So if you have received some unstructured data, now you need not to go and do the manual steps like transposing the rows or maybe filtering, deleting, all that stuff. In the Power Query editor, this is very useful. This is, I mean, we can just go and click on the options like click here, click here, click here, click here, and the things will start happening. So to clean the data, to convert the unstructured data into the structured data, right? So we have unstructured data here, and then you're going to convert that into a structured data, right? How you can do that? Obviously you need the some interface, and that is called the PowerQuery editor. Okay, I'm going to show you this, right? So these are the two main objectives which we will keep in our mind before we start with the PowerQuery. Okay, so now data cleansing is very easy, right? And this is something absolutely a fantastic option, right? Okay, so there are other things also. As we go ahead, I keep on telling you about that, right? So Power Query is before I start, I want to show you the Power Query, how the Power Query looks like. Okay, now to show you the Power Query, what I do is I just go and use some data over here. This is the data I have written here. So what I do is I directly take you to the Power Query editor. Do not worry where I'm clicking right now. It is not something you should know today, right? It is just an overview, but I just want to show you that before we start you should see the Power Query editor also. So this is the Power Query editor, and you can see here that this also has a ribbon. So we have the home, we have the transform, we have the add column, and we have the view tab. Okay, so we're going to learn all these important options available in this menu. Okay, now you have seen the Excel menu, and some of you have learned the VBA also from me. So in the VBA also we have its own separate the editor, the menu, but in this case Power Query also holds its own ribbon, right? So here we can all go and use all these options. This is how the Power Query editor actually looks like. Okay, now one thing which I always I always thought that whenever I start the Power Query, the first thing which I'm going to tell you to my students, that how you can go and convert the unstructured data into the structured data, because when I was learning it, trust me, even when I have completed the 50% of the Power Query training, I wasn't sure that how it is going to be used on the data. I mean, what is exactly that powerful use of the Power Query? So I'm going to talk about that. It is going to take maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes, and you need not to worry about it. I'm going to show you everything very fast. Okay, and we will use this data sample. So whatever I'm going to do, I'm not going to explain you, but you just see the steps and understand that how important it is for us to learn this wonderful tool. Okay, now the first thing is that when the Power Query name comes, you often find people using the word called ETL. Okay, ETL. What is the power? Some people also call it that the Power Query is an ETL tool. Okay, it is an ETL tool indeed, right? But what does that actually means? Okay, now ETL actually refers to three important points. The first is extraction. Okay, the second is the transform, and the last one is the load. Now I'm going to show you this all these points one by one with the example, but before we go and see that this is something we're going to see this in the live environment, you understand that basically extraction means that bring the data into Power Query editor. Okay, you need to go and bring the data over there. In other words, you can say that importing the data. Okay, we like to go and first of all store the data in the Power Query editor, right? Now once we have a data, clumsy data, unstructured data, because if you have a properly structured data, you may not need the Power Query, right? Power Query, basically the reason why we use the Power Query, because we want to just go and remove the unwanted columns, rows, and use some lookups, and then as I said, that sorting and some formulas. Power Query also has some functions which we are going to learn later, so you can do a lot of things. But the first thing is that you need to extract the data, right? Now from where I can extract the data, which means from where I can just go and copy that data and paste it in the Power Query editor, right? Basically it depends upon project to project, scenario to scenario. For example, you can just go and extract this data also. You can go and export this data in the Power Query editor. If you're going to do this, then this is going to be within the Excel, right? Maybe you can go and use some folder also. For example, in this my folder, if I want to import this specific file, I can do that For example, if you want to import some Access database, MS Access database, you can do it. SQL Server, Oracle. I mean, wherever you have a data, Power Query gives us a lot of options. For example, if you look at this under the data tab, right? This is your, all the different sources, from workbook, from CSV file, from the text file, from the XML, from the JSON, and from folder, and from Azure, from I do not know all these things, right? But there are a lot of options here, right? You can see here, right? So we can go and extract the data from these sources and bring that data in the front part of the Power Query. That is the first thing we are going to do. Okay, once you have the data, then you start working on it, then you start transforming that data, which means, as I said, that you have unclean data, and that is going to be now, after the entire process, that data will be cleaned, okay, ready to, I mean, use, right? So that you can go and make the pivots on that. Using the pivots, you can make the reports, whatever you want to do that, right? So once the data is structured, once the data you have, the data you wanted, you simply load it to the Excel sheet. Okay, so you can use the Excel sheet. Without loading in the Excel sheet, you can also go and create the pivots. So this is basically the three processes. So Power Query says, hey, I'm here, I want to work for you. Okay, so first you give me the data. I supply the data. Okay, now using my tools, just go and do all that filtration, all make it structured, the data how you want it, right? And it is very strong, trust me on that. When it comes to cleaning the data, it has a lot of amazing features which we are going to do. Once the data is ready, then now what? Now the Power Query says, okay, I have got the data for you. Now just go and export that data, push that data in the Excel sheet. Okay, and then once you have the data in the Excel sheet, you can go and make the pivots on that. So this is as all about the Power Query. Okay, so now to show you, just to give you the idea about the power of this Power Query, I'm going to show you that how we can go and create some report on this data, right? As I said, that this is just a very brief introduction about the Power Query, but I think if you know this, that what Power Query can do, images will never go out of your mind, and throughout the course you will definitely eagerly going to wait for this type of the skill set that once you will have, then you can start doing this by yourself also. So that is the reason I'm going to tell you this example. Through this example, I'm going to show you how the Power Query works, and I will be fast here. Now the first thing is that if you look at this in this table, let's say somebody is maintaining the data like this. Now we are not going to get into the arguments that this data should have been stored in a better way. You never know how the management wants you to store the data, and how the user has stored the data. All of a sudden the data comes to you and they want that you should go and do some analysis. You can't just go and say that that the data is not properly structured. Now if you look at this example, we have got some sales agents here: Daisy, Avi, Matt, Jack, and Deborah, Claire, Mani, Ajay, Aviral, Diana, and we have got their ID, the sales done, the target they were given, and the performance they have showed here, and the performance month, and the revenue, and the sales with commission. And then this is another for the another month, which is February, and then this is for the March, right? And it may have more data, we never know. This data may be stored in Access, SQL Server, you never know, right? But the data in the Excel is right now, I'm giving you the Excel example. So you may have some more months like April and the May and sort of that. Now guys, the point is that if somebody asks you that what is the total sales done by each of the individual as on date, which means Jan plus Feb plus March, how you're going to show it? Obviously, maybe you go and write some formula here, but let's say they want to see some sort of dashboard, and that when it comes to dashboard or summarizing the reports, we always use the pivot. But is this data an ideal approach for the pivot? I mean, can you make a pivot on this? For example, if I simply go and show you, if I just copy this one data, for example, I'm not copying the rest of the data. Let's say you have a data over here, right? Now they say that you want to just go and show the performance, the sales done. If you try to make the pivot on this, let's go and click on the insert and the pivot, and let's say that I want to use this in the existing sheet, and I use the location here, right? So I go and press OK. Now I'm going to quickly show you. Now look at this. This is the problem with this. The moment you look at the pivot, definitely you will be horrified to see that what I'm seeing here. Why the names are coming like this? Because if you, let's say, put if you just put the daisy here, you just put the another name, they are not going to appear here as a name, which is wrong. They are going to show you some values. The point is, pivot is not going to work on this, right? Because first you need to go and structure this data. You need to go and make this data in a manner that the pivot can accept it. Okay, so what is the next thing you will do? Well, the next thing I think then I will do is, first of all, I delete this, or maybe I delete the sheet. So maybe I will, once I analyze this thing, then what I do is, I simply first of all copy these names. I see that, okay, I need these names. You go in a new sheet, and here to make the pivot on this, we simply go and say that I need the transpose of this value, right? So you go and start working like this, right? And then over here you just go and write the sales agent, for example, right? This is how it is. And then you go and pick up the month also. You know that this is the month, so maybe you can simply go and say this is the Jan, and you go and paste this like this. Now the next thing which you want is obviously the sales performance, right? So let's say I give it a name called performance, and then you go back to your data, and then you will go and pick this sales done, and you copy this, and then again you do the same thing, which is paste value and the transpose, right? This is how you do it. And then these all names will appear here again, and this time it is going to be Feb, and then again you go and copy and paste the data, and you put the performance of the Feb. Now when you go and make the pivot on this, the pivot will work for you, right? But you see, this is a very bigger task, right? Right now I'm just sharing this very small data with you, but if the data is huge, if you have a performance of, let's say, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, it's gonna take a lot of time, right? So here is an example. Now what we're going to do, since we know the Power Query, what we do is, I will be fast here. I simply first of all go and say that I want to just go and take this data in the Power Query editor. Now to take this data into the Power Query editor, first you need to convert this into a table, which I will tell you later, right? So right now this is already a table, so I do not want to do anything. I simply go and say that go in the data and just click on the from table and the range. Okay, from table and range means that you are basically telling the Power Query that this is your data and this is the data I need it here. Okay, now you can see here that I have got the data here, right? This is your Power Query editor. Okay, no need to worry. Okay, I'm going to explain all these things after this session. We are just having a fun here. This is just a demonstration, a very small demonstration, right? Now if you look at this, so I'm trying to tell you that how we can convert this data into a meaningful data using the Power Query editor, and we can make the pivots on that, and we can then find out the solution that who did what in terms of the performance. Now over here, if you look at this, this is exactly looks like a Excel spreadsheet, right? We have the name over here, and then here you have the sales agent, and then the ID is there, sales done is there, and these are the null rows. You can see here these are the null rows, because if you go back in the Excel, you find there that I have created one blank line after every month, right? So these are those lines, right? So first we need to get rid of it. So you just go and say that click on this and just off the null. This is how the data is going to look like, right? Now in the Power Query, we can immediately go and transpose this entire data, right? This is a very powerful option. So what we're going to do is, I simply do one thing. I simply say that I want to just go in the transform, and I click on the transpose. Okay, transpose. The transpose is going to do this immediately. Can you see that all the data is now vertical? Wow, this is fantastic. You need not to do this transposing now every time. You can just go and do it. In fact, you need to take care of you need to take some precautions. You just can't blindly go and transpose it. This is something which is a big topic, and we are going to discuss that, okay, the day we discuss the transpose option in the Power Query. But right now you see that every data is transposed. And now what I do is, I have a header here, column 1, column 2. We don't need that, so Power Query says that you can use the first row as a header. Now once you do that, you have the headers here. Wow, this is really cool, super cool option, right? Now what I'm going to do is that, now let's say you don't want some options, you can delete that. For example, you don't need the revenue okay, you can delete it. You don't need the salary with the commission, you can delete it. That's your choice, okay? Because here I have a revenue, and then this is a revenue belongs to the Jan, so I can go and delete it. For example, let's go and delete it, right? So what I do is I simply say that remove, okay, right click and remove. You want to remove this as well, we can, yes, we can go and remove this. Do you want to remove the target also? Yes, we can remove this as well. I just need the sales done and the month and the sales agent, that's it, right? Now this is the ID -1. Now one ID is here and the same IDs are repeating because this is for the February month. That is why the Power Query created the duplicate item. Obviously Power Query cannot allow you to create the same field, but instead of that, it automatically its engine, it did some analysis, and it created this ID_1. Okay, so we don't need this, or maybe we need it. That's okay. Let us see that what we need and what we not. First of all, we just go and like to keep ID1 sales done 2, and this is the target. Target we don't need it. This is for the February, so we can simply go and say remove. And then the month we need it, yes. Revenue we don't need it, so we can say remove. Now you must be thinking that why I'm deleting this all the columns one by one. Well, you can use control or the shift also. Okay, for example, what I do is, this is the performance for the February, okay, and so I click on this salary with commission, and then what I do is I simply go in the target. I'm using the control key, and I do not need this, again the control key as you do in the Excel to select the random columns, and again I go and press control key and click on this. So now you can delete them, remove columns now, okay? So this is really wonderful. So now you have the month, you have the sales done ID and the sales agent. This is what you needed, it isn't it? I think this is terrific. So we have the March. So from here we start. From here we start from here, and we have the sales and the ID and the sales done and the month. And same way we have the sales agent ID, sales done and the month. So we have all the 4 columns. We needed it, right? Now the point is, this data should be actually in the vertical order, right? Isn't it? I mean, I need this February data just below this data, which is coming over here, isn't it? This is something we needed, right? So how we can do it? Well, it's very easy now. See, what I'm going to do is, once I have the required data, I quickly go and right click on this, okay, and I say that I want the duplicate table of this. Just click on the duplicate. I need one more duplicate, for example, because I need 3 tables, January, February, March. So I'm going to do one thing. Once I am in this table 4, I right click, I say rename, and here I'm going to store the Jan data. So I say that Jan_T, okay, cool. And then I go here, and you can double click also, right, like you do in the renaming of the sheets. This is going to be the Feb_D, okay, cool. And I double click here, and this is going to be my March T. So I have given all these tables a name so that we can remember that this should hold the Jan data, this should hold Feb, and this should hold the March data. Now what we need is, once I'm in the Jan data, I have the ID, sales done, month, and the sales agent, right? Perfect. We don't need all this, so we can simply go and delete this. Okay, so I press delete key or right click, whatever you want. Let's come back to the February. Now in the February, what we need, we just want to delete this information. We don't need this. This is for the January. I delete this, and then we go and delete this as well. This is for the March, right? So I keep my information here, February, cool. Again, then you go for the March, and in the March, what I do is I simply go and delete this information, right? So this is my ID, sales done, month, sales for the January, and this is my ID, sales done, and the month, and the sales agent, right? So this is how it is. So we can simply go and delete this also. So now I have the information with me. I have the ID, sales done, and the month, all that stuff, right? Now what I can do is I can rearrange them. I can just because we have the ID, sales done, and the month, and the sales agent. So what we can do is, the way we want the data, I mean, it's all up to you. You can even go and drag this like you go and do in the Excel. So ID, sales done, and the sales agent. So after the ID, I think the sales agent should come, and then the sales done and the month, and then I can go and create the same thing here, ID, and then the sales agent. So what I do is I simply go here and I say sales agent, and then you have the sales done, you have the month, cool. Same way I will do it here. So we have the sales ID here, so I simply go and drag it here. Okay, you can even right click, and you can just go and move this, right? I mean, we have the option here. This is the move left, right, to beginning to end, right? So once we have the data, ID, sales, and the sales done and the month, now the time to action, right? Because we have got the data the way we want. Now, at this point in time, if there is a question popping up in your mind, then you're going in the very good direction, which is that all the headers are different. So will this make an impact or will this not make an impact? Because here we have an ID, here we have, the ID underscore one and so on, right? Well, this is something, let's keep it as this as a secret for the future, right? But right now what I want to do is I simply want to go and say that this is going to be ID, so I can double click here and very nicely Power Query editor will take me in the edit mode, and I can just go and remove all this, right? So as I said that you just need to have a fun here, just go and see that kind of it should give you some idea that okay, this is how the Power Query actually works, right? So this is just 5% of the Power Query, but you can do very powerful things, right? I mean, later on when we work on this data, we can find out some more solutions also, which can save you more time. Okay, but right now this is, I think, enough for us just to see how the things are going to work. So you can see that how fast I'm actually doing all this. The wizard is so smart, right? I mean, it's very easy for somebody to work on the Power Query editor, and so far, can you beat that? You haven't used any formula. So this is really good, super cool option. Any Excel user can just go and do this type of a task, right? Okay, so once we have done everything, now what we do is, so in the over here in the home tab we have an option called the merge query, okay, and append query. Now I want to append this one data, the Feb and the March, into the Jan. So what I do is I simply go and click on the append and I say that I want to append all these queries as a new. So I just go and give it a name, which we can say that the total, okay, or maybe we can say all data. So here we have an option, you want to append 2 table or 3 or more table. Now I'm not sure, I'm using Office 365. Okay, so if you're using Excel 2010 or Excel 2013, which I will tell you later how you can install that, the Power Query editor there, the add-in. But if you don't see the three or more tables, then in the coming videos I'm going to tell you what you can do, right? But right now I have got this option, as they keep on improvising on these the tools, the BI tools like Power Query or the Power Pivot and the Power BI, so with every version, every 2 months, 3 months, they keep on modifying these tools for us, so that it should be easy for us to work on this when it comes to data reporting and data analysis. So don't be surprised if you don't see this option in your 2010 or 13, right? Well, in the course I will tell you each and everything, don't worry. So right now I have the 3 or the more tables. So what I do is I simply go and add these tables over here. So I click on this and I click on this and I say add. Now I want to add all these tables, right? So I quickly say okay. Once it is done, now you see that the data is appended. Fantastic. I can go and give this a rename this, so I can say that this is basically my all data. So now you have a 4 table basically. One is Jan, Feb, March, and this is your all data. Any point in time in the future, if you want to use any specific data, you can use it, right? So do not delete this data. Power Query will not mind it. Power Query can store this data as long as you do not want to remove the data. Now once I have this data I'm not going to use at all, because this is where we have the entire data. Now what you need to do is, once you select this option, you simply go in the close and the load, and now if you want to just go and take this data in the Excel in the table form, you can click on the close and load. If you want to just make the pivot, you can click on this close and load too. Now here I want to tell you something which I will tell in the later sessions also. In 2010 some students told me initially that they don't find this option. So if you don't find this option, no problem, I will tell you when the right time come. Okay, but right now I just want to create a pivot on this because this is what I needed it. Just click on this pivot table report, new worksheet, click OK, and finally our data is ready, right? So this is going to take some time. Let us wait for this. It's loading actually. All right, so finally we have the data loaded, and you can see here that you have the table names. So this is to just make sure that if you are working on any of the table, you should know what you have to do, right? Now in my case, what I'm supposed to do is, well, this shows me the Jan ID, so I can just go and close this, right? So what I do is I need the all data to be used, so maybe I can go and remove this sheet. I do not need this. For example, what I do is I just simply go and right click on this and say load to, right? Now for Excel 2010 users, as I was telling you, if you don't find this option, the pivot option in the front part, you can right click on this and you can say load to. Okay, so whatever table you select and then right click and say load to, the pivot table option will come. So I want to make the pivot table on the all data, so I say simply okay, And before I do that, I simply go and create a new sheet over here. Okay, so in the new sheet I say right click and then I say that load to and pivotable report. Okay, this is where I want on the existing sheet, right? If you want it on the new sheet, you can do it. Okay, it will create the new sheet. So finally we should have here the pivot created, right? And now you can do whatever you want, right? So as you see that this is my table name, right? And we have got everything here. So what I need is I simply need the sales agent. Now I put the sales agents over here and I can just go and say the sales done. If you need the month on month performance, you can put the month also here, right? But I just do not need it. I want to see the overall performance, right? So this is how it is. And you know, we can do the sorting also on the pivot. So I say largest to smallest, right? So one should be good with the pivot, right? This is I clearly mentioned this before that you need to have a good amount of knowledge, you know, in the pivot, because ultimately the data which you are going to clean in the Power Query using its features and the tools, functions, you know, whatever, you will need to create a pivot on that because you need to, you know, make the reports, right? So this is how it is. And as you know now, rest we just go and create this in the tabular form, and this is the data in front of you now, right? And this data, if you want to give it a some template, some sort of color, you can give it, right? Now here we have the top performers, you can see here, right? So guys, you see that this was the data, right? So this is how you go and, you know, work with the Power Query. Now I have just given you a, you know, just I mean a tip of the iceberg I have shown you, right? But the moment we take a deep dive into this Power Query, lot of fantastic things are going to come, and you know, you can always overcome these sort of challenges, you know, where you don't find the data in the proper order. So just go and use the Power Query. So now you understand what happened in the ETL, why we call this ETL. First you extracted the data from here, you brought this data in the Power Query editor, then in the Power Query you use so many options, you know, if you remember we used the transpose, then we created the duplicates and then deleted some of the icons, then we merged the query. That is all, you know, is done basically in the transform. You're transforming the data. Once the data was set up, what we did, we said close and load or close and load to, and we got that data, you know, in the Excel sheet. So next time when they ask you what do you mean by the ETL tool, you should be able to explain it right? Now the last thing in this, so you saw the example, that's good enough. Now we will start our real, actually the Power Query. But before the Power Query we start, there are a few points, I mean in terms of the installation, you should know it. So how to install the Power Query? Now guys, the thing is, if you're using Excel 2016 or Office 365, this is by default available here. And under the data tab, you know, will go and use this entire tab, right? So here we have the query in the connections, and this entire window is basically dedicated you know, to the Power Query. But if you're using the Excel 2010 or Excel 2013, you need to first download this from the Microsoft website. Okay, I'll show you the snapshot. Look at this. In the 2010, this Power Query will come after uploading, right? In the 2013 also you will have a Power Query window here. In my case, you don't find here anywhere the Power Query, right? Because in my case I'm using Office 365, and in 2016, you know, this comes under the data tab like this. So this is the only difference, right? So how you can download this is very important and a very simple step. What you need to do is, I'll take you to the Google. Now just type in here that you want to download the Power Query. Okay, you're gonna find a lot of links, but just say that download Power Query, press enter, and then we should go in the Microsoft link. So you can see here that the link is going to come from the Microsoft. I'm gonna click on this. Now this is the page, and from here you can choose the language, whatever language you prefer. Click on the download and you can check the details, the system requirement. This is very important, right? So on which window this Power Query works, so you can find out all this information. And this is also telling you about the 2010 Professional Plus, and in the 2013, you know, basically you can read further the details about it. Okay, so install instructions are there, which are very simple. I'm just going to tell you about that. Now in the detail section you find here that the Power Query comes in basically two packages, 32-bit and 64-bit. Okay, so depending upon your Excel version, you will go and install the 32-bit or the 64-bit. So what you can do is you can simply go in the file, and you can click on the account, and in the account just go in this about Excel, click on the about Excel, and here you find the the information. My is, as you know, I told you Office 365, and in this it is an inbuilt feature, but the point is for you, you need to check it is a 32-bit or 64-bit. Okay, now if you're using 2010, I think you won't find this information in the account, but you can just simply go and Google and you can check that in the 2010 how we go in the file and where we can find the information about the 32-bit or the 64-bit. That's a very normal process. You can Google it. So once you're done with this, what you do is the moment you click on this, the download, the next page comes, and here you can select this 32-bit. Like in my case, it is 32-bit. It's a 17 MB program, and click on this next, and after you click on the next, so this file exe is downloaded. Just go in the open, click on the open, and once you click on the open, you need to run this exe file just like you run any file. So this is preparing to install. This is how it is. Please close the Microsoft Excel and retry. So basically you have to close your Excel. Every Excel needs to be closed. In fact, better you close all the Microsoft applications, PowerPoint or MS Word, though I'm not sure whether that will affect your installation, but the point is if you go and close it and relaunch click on this exe file again, you just go and need to go and follow this process where it says next and finish, right? Once you click on the finish, what will happen for Excel 2010 and 13 users, here you will find that the Power Query added automatically. Okay, and when you click on that, this is how it is going to look like. Obviously there are some changes because this is the later versions, but overall whatever we are going to do in this, everything will be compatible. Okay, as I showed in the snapshot also, that you will find here the Power Query. Okay, so the Power Query will come here. Okay, in my case it is under the data tab. So you can see here they have added from web, from file, from database, and everything is there, but here basically they put that under the data tab, get and transform. Okay, get and transform, this is the another name which is given to this the Power Query. It is a very simple procedure. Yes, one thing, if you don't find this when you relaunch the Excel after installing the Power Query, if you don't find here the Power Query, then what you can do is you can just go in the file, and in the file just click on the options, whatever Excel 2010 or 2013 version you have, go in the need to go in the add-in basically, and in the add-in option so click on this add-in option, and here just select the COM add-in, click on the go, and here you're going to find out that option called Microsoft Power Query. Just go and check mark that, click OK, and the Power Query will appear here. Okay, this is for Excel 2010 and for 2013 users. So now your Power Query is ready. Okay, and we will start now. In the next session we will talk about its all the important features. Okay, in case if you have any problem, if you are facing any issue, you can let me know, but make sure depending upon your Excel version, which you can check from the file and the account, if you're using Excel, I think 2013 also works the same way, but you can just Google how you can find out the version. You just need to make sure that it should be a 32-bit or 64 accordingly. The Microsoft website, when you go here, you download that exe file. Once you download that exe file, you shouldn't be having any Microsoft Office application open. Close everything, just open that exe file, and just agree, click on the agree. There is a agreement over there, just check mark that and say that next and finish, and the Power Query will appear here. So thank you so much for joining me in, and in case if you have any questions, doubts, you can always email me. I'll see you now in the Power Query next lecture. Bye bye.